One Piece chapter 705, man. Damn. Oda really took it there. Oda really took it there. Like, so many different parties are playing, and there's so many different moving parts at this point where you don't know who exactly is after the devil fruit, and yet at the same time you don't know how far the reach of this is going, because you got undercover Navy vice admirals who are infiltrating, where one of them is supposed to be a combatant, and yet he's speaking with another vice admiral. And when the I know I'm saying his name wrong, Fujitora, when he basically walks out, he's saying like, okay, we need to get a head count of how many different people we need to protect from the island. You know, because it's the people we need to be worried about. And yet at the same time, it feels as if they're making the preparations for a buster call. And the reason why I say that is like they're talking about how all the different warships and everything need to be called to the island, and they're trying to take all the precautions necessary. They want a head count of how many people in the stands. He's been observing how many people are in there, and he's been taking a list of names. And it's just like the Navy is really moving. Like the world government is not taking this whole thing with Doflamingo lightly. And it's one of the points that Law makes. Law is just saying like, I don't understand. Their king, the king of their island, just stepped down. One of the 7 warlords has stepped down. The island's no longer protected, and these guys are basically moving around like nothing has happened. It's business as usual here. You would expect there to be a lot more chaos. And the world government is essentially moving forward. And I don't know if that's more so because of the fact that, you know, like Doflamingo basically crossed them. He stepped down as one of the 7 warlords, and so now the hunt is back on for him. It's a sign of weakness for the world government to allow him to kind of continue his escapades. So I don't know if that's maybe the world government, you know, tying up their own loose ends. And yet at the same time, it's very interesting. They got a combatant who's fighting for the flame fruit as well. And it's just like on one hand, you know, Luffy wants the devil fruit. You know, Rebecca wants it so she can take down Doflamingo. She's probably got the most admirable reason after Luffy. And, you know, Blackbeard wants it because he has his first commander fighting for it. And now the world government has somebody. So I'm guessing your 4 combatants are going to be Luffy, the guy from Blackbeard's crew. You're going to have Rebecca, and then you're going to have the guy from the world government. So you're going to have 4 different parties who are vying for the devil fruit. And that's interesting because it's almost as if you're getting a miniature war that's breaking out for the devil fruit of the son of the king of the pirates. So it's almost as if that's like foreshadowing in itself, that you're going to have another war that takes place because you have all the different parties. Like Blackbeard is a guy who's essentially a threat to everybody. You have the world government. You have Rebecca, who you can swap out with Luffy's father in the revolution. You have Luffy, and then you have the world government. I mean, those would be your 4 parties. So I'm interested to see if that's the direction Oda goes, and if that would be a type of foreshadowing. Now, I had to talk about this, right? I had to talk about this. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say like, oh man, he's going to blow up the Nami section of the chapter. Anything Nami does, he's going to blow it up. That's not the case. I'm actually more impressed with what happened with Nico Robin than I am Nami, right? Like I thought the Nami stuff, that was just fan service. But with Nico Robin, at first I'm looking like, damn. Oh, they got her with like the dress and everything. Like, damn, you know, Nico Robin low key looking good, man. You know, like the hair and all the other stuff, she looking good, right? And then all of a sudden, you just get this moment where the survivor in Nico Robin shows up, where when they're talking about the green bit and learning about like the fighting fish that are in there and how they attack the ships and capsize them, and how the bridge is no longer safe even though it's sturdy. Nico Robin just immediately pulls down her hat, and she's in full survivor mode. Nobody else has picked up on the fact that CP0's in there, and yet Nico Robin picks up on it immediately, right? And I gotta say this, right? Like Nico Robin, when she did that, it reminded me of a joke that old friend of mine used to make, right? An old friend of mine used to say, like, hey, when it come to brothers, Like, we don't need radar detector. That's what he used to say. He always used to say this. He said, brothers, we don't need radar detector because we automatically know when the police is in the area. Like, it's just a sixth sense. You know, brothers been running their whole existence. They were over in Africa. You know, we running from the lions and tigers and bears and the Lion King. We trying to escape the circle of life. And then when we got to America, we running from slavery. You know, we running from the slave masters and everything. And then from the civil rights era, like we running away from the racist South and all that. And then now we just running from the police. We always running. We know when somebody there. It's like Nico Robin's just like, yeah, you know, I ain't a brother, but, you know, I got that radar. Something ain't right. She pulled down the hat, right? She pulls the hat down. And she's basically like, hey, shut up. CP0's there. And Usopp's like, CP0? Who the hell are those guys? And then that's when she breaks it down. She says, look, like they're the supreme authority figure. Remember CP9? Like these are the same people. You need to hide. You need to chill. That's impressive because Nico Robin, it just shows you, like, because of the life that she's had to live, she's always on guard. Even though she's with the Straw Hats, she's always on guard. And I said it in the last chapter, right? I said it in the last chapter review where when I read the whole thing with Nico Robin, when Oda was talking about why she is the way she is, you know, I mean, I can totally relate to that, you know, because, you know, like I've told you guys before, like I've linked in the past my personal channel where I did put up my story, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You know, what I will say is that, you know, when I was younger, I was a victim of sexual assault. And I know you don't really hear too much about men talking about it, but, you know, I was a victim of sexual assault. And for a really long time, it really, really, really messed me up. And so that's what I mean when I say I can relate to Nico Robin, because, you know, with Robin, you see her, you see how she's struggling to, you know, adapt. Like she has all these funny pictures in her head, and yet it comes out in the wrong way. And even though she's surrounded by friends, even though she's surrounded by people who are essentially family for her, that guard never really gets lowered. Her trust is never really fully given over to Luffy and the others. It's something that, you know, because you've had to be on your own and in your own head for so long, and you had to survive on your own, you don't really move past what happened to you in the past. And I can totally relate to that. You know, like with me, you know, like, I mean, I have those moments where, like, when, you know, my girl will hug me or touch me or something like that, I immediately stiffen up. I immediately jerk away. Like if, you know, she comes up from behind and, you know, grabs, like, you know, puts her arm around me or something, you know, for a hug, or if she, you know, just touches me, I'm not expecting it. Like I've had moments where I've just reacted and I've either pushed her away, or, you know, I hate even saying this and copping up this, but I mean, I had one moment where, you know, she was getting me from behind, it's just tickling, just, you know, doing, you know, random shit. And because I wasn't expecting it, and because I was so tense because somebody touched me from behind, I actually backhanded her. And that's something like I'll never get over. And it's the same thing, like when you get to your moments where you get intimate, you know, you have your flashbacks where even though it happened years ago, it's not something that you fully moved over. And it just takes people understanding what you've been through and being willing to work through it with you. And when you find somebody who's willing to do that, you stick with them. And that's what's happened with Robin. Like with Robin, she saw that she had that with Luffy and the Straw Hats, and she's staying there. And the fact that when she had the whole thing with Annie's Lobby where she was willing to die and they never gave up on her, and then they continued to push to bring her out of that darkness. You know, Robin's changed a little bit, and yet at the same time, this chapter shows us that her instincts are still there. They're still buried deep inside of her. And because of what happened to her at that young age, she's always going to be like that. But in this case, that negative is a huge positive. And so I really like that Oda was able to kind of pull that back, because you would think somebody like Law would pick up on it, but it's actually Robin. So, I mean, I like that aspect of it. I thought that was a very, very intelligent bit of writing there. What was also very fascinating about that whole scene is how Caesar, in the back of Caesar's mind, I really feel as if Caesar is trying to come up with a plot, a way to scheme, and keep himself from being, handed over. I really feel as if that's one case. Yes, the idea is, they're supposed to do the drop off and everything, and somebody's supposed to go to the Smile Factory. I believe that was Franky. And yet at the same time, it's like Caesar, I really feel as if Caesar getting back to Doflamingo will be one thing, but he wants to do it on his terms. Not this way, because he's not fully free. And like this dude's just like, hey, I'm too valuable to take across that bridge. We need to change the drop point. And Traffic Law has a really good point. He's like, hey, we've already come too far. We come too far. We can't whine about it. We can't change it. And, Law just strikes me as a person where, he comes up with a plan and he sticks to it. He doesn't adjust. It isn't like Batman. Like Batman has a contingency plan for his contingency plan. And yet at the same time, when it all goes to crap, Batman always has another plan. With Law, it's just like, no, this is the plan. This is what we're sticking to. It'll all work out if we stick to the plan that we have. Law, that can be a weakness though. So, that's interesting because you got so many different moving parts that are going on with Dressrosa right now. Like, that's going to be a weakness. I could really see Law's plan failing, not because of Law, but not because of Luffy, but because of Law, because Law's inability to make adjustments. That's going to be interesting. Maybe I got the wrong read on the character. Yes, now moving on to the Nami aspect of the chapter, that was pretty funny, man. That was pretty funny, just the bickering and back and forth banter and all that, and how Brooke was like, I thought we were having a lap pillow party, and Nami said, what the fuck is a lap pillow party? And for a second, I didn't even see Brooke, all right? I didn't even see Brooke in her lap. I thought when Brooke was like, I'm enjoying myself, because you see like the down blouse shot of Nami, I'm thinking, is this dude really peeping from above? Like, that's a smart dude, so you can't hit him. And then he's in her lap, right? And Momonosuke is just like, oh man, I'm in heaven right now. He's just rubbing Nami's thigh, that lucky bastard. He's just rubbing the thigh. And Brooke's like, I want in on some of this action too. And Nami just cold clocks this dude. I love that, man. I love that. I love that interaction. That is so hilarious. That is so hilarious. I love that. But what's also interesting is like Chopper and Nami are doing it because they're trying to cheer the kid up. To try to cheer him up. And that just goes back to the whole thing of like, at the end of the day, they might not be fighting. They might not be the most powerful. And yet, when it comes to being human characters, they're the most human characters on the ship. That's just my opinion. I really like that. And, with Nami, one of the things we've seen since she's been in the New World is we're seeing more of the nurturing side of Nami. Because, we see her tending to those kids on Punk Hazard, and now she's tending to Momonosuke. She's letting herself be used a little bit. And we've even seen it with Nico Robin. That's interesting. I just hope that one of the things we don't see is that Oda just completely takes the Kishimoto route and makes all the women housewives. I hope that isn't the case, but I do like the fact that we're seeing more of a nurturing side to the various women who've been introduced into One Piece. That's interesting because it just shows a level of complexity. And I think that's super sexy too, because you got a character like Nami. She's very opinionated, hot-blooded. She'll fight in a battle and then she'll turn around and be very nurturing and affectionate. It just shows you that, even though she's a savage beast at times, even that savage beast can be tamed. I really like that aspect of it. Now, I want to close the chapter review out with the last observation I made, right? Which is when Franky's talking to the kid with the hat, right? A little stuffed creature, like the little walking toys and all that. It has the SOL thing, right? And when I first saw it, right, like when we first got introduced to the Colosseum aspect, I wanted to say it then, and I didn't, bring it up in the chapter review because when I was recording, I was like, I don't think that's going to be important. Now that this thing has spoken to Franky again, I got to say this. So maybe I'm crazy, okay? Maybe I'm absolutely crazy on this, but that top hat reminds me of, what's the kid's name? It's Luffy's other brother, Sabo. That top hat reminds me of that. Now, that's obviously not Sabo because we saw Sabo get blown up by celestial dragons. But the fact that top hat's there and this is an arc about Ace, which is another one of Luffy's brothers. That's interesting. That's interesting. I don't quite know. Like, it feels as if there's something there and I'm not quite grasping it. Really feels as if there's something there, but I'm not fully grasping it. But I mean, that's interesting to me that Oda would have that design in there. And I'll know for certain if Luffy gets the opportunity to interact with it. Because if Luffy interacts with that little puppet thingy and he sees that top hat and he says, oh, Sabo, that's Sabo, or you remind me of Sabo, then that lets me know I'm on to something. If Luffy just sees and says, oh shit, it's a talking toy. How you doing? Can you squeak? I bet you can squeak, squeak, can't you? Are you a squeak, squeak toy? If Luffy takes that type of approach, I know I'm reading too much into it. But I mean, that's one of the things that now that thing's talking to Franky and saying we can't talk here because talking about taking down Doflamingo is, blasphemous. Now my attention's been raised. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an incredible day.